Awesome. I really like San Francisco. Nice background. Surprised nobody else had any other backgrounds. How's it going? All right. So let me just pull up my little presentation because we like using presentations. Can everyone see this now? Oh no, probably not actually. Maybe I need to share my screen first. That'd probably be a good idea. Sorry, we'll get there shortly.
No worries.
Let's share this screen. Cool. Everyone see that right now?
Not yet. Yes.
Yeah, cool. So let me just move this on the other side. Boom. Bathtub gin. As you can see, our starting point is double infused for extra flavor. Now, I think this is a very important point before we even delve into it to really explain, to really go into that, because we're not just a typical gin. I'm guessing most of you are bartenders or know what gin is. Being Dutch, gin comes from Netherlands, or Jennifer comes from there. And the English added more stuff to it for some reason. In this case, when we talk about double infuses, is because we actually go through two processes to create our gin. So that's just a bit of a precursor so we can understand what's going on here. Now, I know most of you guys know, and ladies know what gin is, but we're gonna do a bit of a backstory and then we'll get into bathtub so we can have explain what that is. And then, yeah, just talk about bathtub. Negroni. I'm guessing everyone knows what this is. What's that?
That looks great, the Negroni.
Yeah, probably should have made a Negroni before we started this conversation. Maybe after. So juniper berries, I guess the most important thing for Jennifer and for gin. If there isn't juniper berries, there's no gin or there's no Jennifer. So what is a gin? Do you really want me to get into the basics of what a gin is, Roy? Or do you kind of skip over that?
You can do briefly a little bit.
Okay. Gin, what is gin? Gin is essentially a neutral-based spirit. Neutral-based meaning that it can be made from any cereal or fruit, for that matter. Usually distilled to a very high ABV, usually over 75%. Once the alcohol that is neutral is delivered to any distillery, it is at that point that you start putting in the different botanicals. There are classic botanicals, and as we know today, you can pretty much put anything in a gin and it's still a gin. But the most important thing about gin, especially by EU law, is it has to predominantly taste of juniper berry. What that percentage is, what that means, there's no definition, there's no percentage, there's nothing. It just tastes like juniper berry. Generally, depending on the type of gin, if it's London dry, it must be distilled, and the infusion of the botanicals are during the distillation process, and then you're only allowed to add water afterwards, and that's a gin. There are obviously compound gins, there's mixed gins, there's macerated gins. Macerated gins are pretty important for us today, as well as London dry gins, and I'll explain to you why in just a bit. So that's pretty much a little bit about gin. I know you guys, ladies, all know what that is a bit, but it's always nice to have a bit of a refresher. So just some other gins that exist in the world. Dry gin is typical English. Kavlan came out with a gin that is, I guess, more towards what you would say the modern style gin. Using local botanicals that are from Taiwan, things that you wouldn't typically find in Europe, but still falls underneath the realm of gin because it still has juniper berries. And then here is our lovely bathtub gin. And as you can see, we have a bathtub on it as well. And I can even explain why we use a bathtub as well. So our gin, neutral alcohol, redistilled, no artificial flavorings, no colors, nothing. You guys, everyone might ask a question, why is bathtub gin a little bit brown? And I'll go into that when we get into the botanicals that we use. If you look at your gin, it does have a bit of a slight tinge of brown to it, and that's actually natural. There's a reason for that, and we'll get into that just after. Can't let all the secrets out just yet. Whitley Neal was really great as well. A lot of botanicals from South Africa. Hendrix, we all know, started with cucumber, Rangpur, and Gordon's. So why am I going over London Dry Gin yet again? It is because it's kind of the base of our gin. We start off with a London Dry Gin, but it's not where we stop. We literally start there and then we delve into another process. A bit about Bathtub. So Ableforth is the brand, which composes of Bathtub Gin, Rum Bullion, Cherry Brandy. Historically, we've also done some smoked vodkas. We've done some absinthe and some other wacky products, but we're starting to really concentrate on what are our two core expressions, Bathtub and Rum Bullion. But Bathtub was the first product that was ever launched by Adam Brands. And for those of you who know Adam Brands is also part of Maverick Drinks in the UK, and we also do Master Malts. Yeah. So Bathtub Gin started in 2011. It was by the 5 founders who are still based in Tunbridge. Tunbridge is a small town, about 40 miles, so 55 kilometers south of London in the Kent countryside. These are 5 gents who are friends since their childhood, grew up together, and decided to start their own crazy wackiness of creating spirits and also their website. And now we have what is Adam Brands as a whole. Part of the idea why they wanted to get into this was that they like gin. Being British makes sense, I guess. But they also felt that the gins lacked a little bit of flavor, a little bit of intensity. So they decided to start playing around in their labs. Well, at that point, it was probably pretty much just their flats, and came up with Bathtub Gin. It also went a bit historical in terms of how gins used to be made in bathtubs, and seeing how to amplify a London Dry and yet again infuse it. So what is the secret? Double infused. So what does that really mean? I guess everyone can read it, but what it means is that Bathtub is that we get a London Dry Gin, so typical London Dry Gin, we get it distilled for us, and then we get it delivered to our warehouse in Tunbridge. At that point, we add in our 6 all-natural botanicals that are then macerated in the same gin for another 6 days. After the 6 days, and it could also depend during the summer if it gets a little bit hot, it could be a little bit, maybe 4 days or 5 days. Generally, it's about 6 to 7 days. So then that's the added process, and then we filter and then bottle. So the reason why you might see a bit of that brown color is because one of the botanicals actually imparts its flavor in there. As you can see, there's cinnamon. So cinnamon and cloves actually will give a bit of that tinge of color along with the flavor profile going into it. So just to recap, what I'm going to go over now is what we add into it for our maceration. So our second distillation, if you like. So cardamom, juniper berries, so another infusion of juniper berries. Orange peel, which is pretty much bitter orange peel. Coriander seeds, cloves, and the most important is probably also cassia or cinnamon. So these are all natural, sourced from the same people from when they started off in 2011. These are all natural products, and we still purchase from the same people as we did almost 10 years ago to still make the same gin. I would like to add that even though we don't macerate in 5 or 20-liter dam gins, we macerate in 700-liter stainless steel tanks. The process is still very much the same, and even at 700 liters, it's still not that much of a big process. It's still very much a hands-on small process. One would even say with the US, a small batch process. So why do we take this extra step? We take the extra step because, like I said, sorry if I'm repeating stuff over, just kind of to hammer it in that we just really wanted a gin that really sings by itself. So this is a great gin to obviously have a tonic, It's also a great gin to have it over the rocks or to have in a cocktail, where the botanicals that are being double infused in there will impart such a great flavor into it that you won't have to add too much other ingredients to really amplify what's going on in your cocktail or drink or home serving. I think the first year, 2011, we sold maybe 1,000 bottles, maybe 500 bottles. We're probably getting up to close to, well, we're going to be this year. Unfortunately, 2020 put a curtail on everyone's volumes. We're probably going to get up to about 500,000 bottles of Bathtub Gin. Why am I saying this? Not to say that we've had great growth over 10 years, but the simple fact is that we still make every single bottle of Bathtub Gin is made by hand. A little story, when I first started with Adam Brands, everyone has to go make a Bathtub Gin bottle to wrap it yourself. You take a paper, put glue on it, you properly fold the paper over the bottle, then you put the cord on it, and then you hand dip the wax. It took me 5 minutes.
One bottle.
One bottle.
Wow.
The people who do this every day, in and out every day, they do one every 60 seconds. So I'm definitely not getting a job in the production side, unfortunately. But it's just going to say it's wise to add on to not only doing small batch, even though we keep growing and growing the brand, is that every bottle is still hand wound, hand waxed, and hand glued. So every single bottle is done by hand. Just in case everyone's worried, we also have our own hydrogel, so there's no COVID, everyone has their masks, and it's all proper now.
Yeah.
Well, I hope so. if not, just drink some gin. But it's just going to say that there's still very much the outlook of the brand is still from day one, and is still today, is to really have that hand touch to it and really that outlook to it. Now, before I get into this, well, I guess I can get into this, but as I already said, more flavor, intense aromas, texture is a bit different, the hue, the cocktails. But it does take longer. It does cost us more money. So it's the unfortunate parts, but I guess that's the good part of being a little bit different. We are in a world where there is over 3,000 different gins in Europe right now, over 650 gins in the UK alone. So I guess you really have to stand out and be a little bit different. And that also comes in terms of what botanicals everyone's using. But our outlook was to stay true to our double infusion and just do our process no matter what it takes and continue on it and not change. We're not going to change anytime soon, and we're going to really just stay true to what the brand has been since day one. Even though I think we would like to probably find a machine to wrap the bottles, because wrapping by hand is not that easy.
Because how many bottles do you produce at the moment?
We're probably getting up to just over 400,000 this year.
400,000 a year. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hand wrapping.
That's a lot of hand wrapping. And if you mess up one, the bottle's gone and you have to make a new bottle.
Oh, wow.
And in case anyone's asking, we are trying to figure out a way where the bottles will be able to be recycled, because right now the glue is a natural glue, but you can't take it off the paper and it can't be recycled every country. So we're trying to figure out a way where we can use a glue where the label will come off easily and people can recycle going forward. But it's in the works, unfortunately, not just yet.
Yeah.
But it does make a nice candle holder, so in case. But right before we get into tastings, the reason why we have a bathtub on it, I guess we'll go into a little bit of a history 101 here. History 101, during the Prohibition, so let's go in the 1920s United States, as distillation was stopped, except for the 7 distilleries that were creating pretty much whiskey and bourbon or rye, all the distillation stopped. Spirits were being brought in from across the world, from Genever to whiskey from Ireland, or Canadian beer and Canadian whiskey, but nothing was really being made in the United States, well, legally. So illegally, everyone was making spirits. Some people had small little stills, some people made home stills. Another way of doing it was to take vodka or another high proof alcohol and take all your botanicals and throw them into a big jug or into a bathtub. There was many stories about people taking their bathtubs and filling it up with alcohol, chucking in all their botanicals, and then making a gin. So I guess it's a very rudimentary way of looking at maceration, but it still is a form of maceration. And the story behind this was we definitely don't use bathtubs anymore. We use big tanks. But the story was just to kind of throw back a bit of a story back to what is the bathtub gin was that Prohibition era of making gin in your own. Sorry, one of my neighbors is obviously had a good party last night.
This is your screen.
Yeah. So the idea of that was, so we call it bathtub, was to give an ode back to that and put on the front. So that's why we have a bathtub. Now, I invite, if everyone already hasn't tasted, let's give it a bit of a taste and see what you guys, if everyone can pick out some of those botanicals and maybe which one stands out a bit more, which one stands out less. Is it on the nose? Is it on the palate? Is it on the back end?
You smell really the cinnamon for me.
Me too. I think for me, it's always the juniper that jumps out a lot, and then always that cinnamon sweetness in the background of it. And the citrus is kind of just underlying, but I think you get the citrus a lot more on the palate and the coriander than you do on the nose. What I like about it also, I think, is nice, that nice little spiciness to it, which comes from the cloves and also the coriander, and that nice little smoothness of the cardamom in the background. And then really in the back end of your palate, you get that strong bitter orange flavor coming out. But definitely the juniper kind of lingers over throughout it, and that cinnamon, it kind of overlays more than everything else. Gin is not probably the best thing to drink straight up, but it's better for tasting purposes. So if everyone wants to use some tonic or whatever soft drink you have with you, feel free to add in a bit and taste it that way. As once you start diluting it, obviously the flavors, the profile of the flavors start coming out a bit more than they would, straight up. Sorry, question? I think we have a couple questions coming up. And what do we say? So we have a new little slogan, which I think is kind of funny. It's very British though. So it's ice, slice, and someone nice. So why not? Drinks are meant to be shared with people, and especially in these times, why not? We're always supposed to have a good time with people, so enjoy it. Enjoy it with someone nice and have a slice. That's about it for me versus Bathtub Gin. What I will discuss with you is a bit about the rest of the range. Is that all right, Roy?
Yeah, that's all right.
Cool.
If anybody has questions about the bathtub or about the wrapping or the wax, if not, we can proceed to the other SPUs.
Let me see. Looks like we have a couple questions. Chat. Let's see. I thought that's why it was brown. Yep, it's true. Smells pretty herbal. Cloves. Focus. Cool. No questions just yet, but feel free to answer, to throw out some questions. We got new messages.
Can you still put the tasting notes into?
For sure. Love this program. You can just slide up. It's easy.
And what botanicals are being used for the London Dry Basic?
I don't know. You won't tell me.
It's a secret.
It's another secret. I can tell you there is not cinnamon, there's not cloves in there. There's definitely coriander, there's definitely some cardamom and juniper. The other botanicals, there are a few other ones they haven't told me. Generally, I can go off of suspicion. They don't trust me because I tell everybody all the secrets, unfortunately. There might be some Melissa, some roots, Melissa roots, probably. That's pretty much my guess about those ones so far. But unfortunately, they don't let me know because I let out all the secrets.
The company secrets.
Yeah, distillation secret. They won't even tell me where it's even made, unfortunately. Well, I'll keep with the messages just in case. So to extend on the bathtub gin, we obviously have the basic bathtub gin, but we also have a couple other expressions. Notably, what I'm drinking, because it's the only small bottle I had, so I have a little one. We have a Navy strength. I'm guessing everyone knows what Navy strength is, but just in case, Navy strength gin is gin that is at 57%. The reason why gin is at 57% is because during the naval period.
Show the bottle.
Nice. All right. During the period when we actually used to use cannonballs and gunpowder on boats, no matter what navy it was, they would still have rum or gin on the boats for the sailors to use. Cameras. So what they figured out is that if you have a gin or a rum on board on the ship, and let's say that barrel gets hit by a cannonball or explodes or something, and the gin spills all over the gunpowder, it wouldn't be able to be used if it's at, let's say, 40%. So what they did is, after tests, is they figured out that a gin or a rum or any spirit has to be over 57%. At 57%, if any spirit leaks onto gunpowder, it can still ignite. So the reason why we have Navy strength today is just historical and just to have a more powerful gin. This is the same exact gin as the standard bathtub, which I have a nice fancy bottle. It's exactly the same, just with a higher ABV. Hold on, I got a question. What temperature of the gin during the 7 days of maturation? There isn't necessarily a temperature. It is made in our warehouse. We have a warehouse where we do the bottles, and we also have our lab where we can distill certain products and have our crazy creations. That warehouse is not air conditioned, so it's going by the temperature that is outside. So in the winter months, it's pretty temperate, what it is in terms of English countryside, so 5-10 degrees. And in the summer, as it is England, it doesn't probably get up above 22 degrees, in and around there. So it's pretty much the temperature that it is outside.
And does it affect the end product?
It can. So what we have to do during the warmer months is we have to kind of test it versus on the 5, 6, 7 days to see where the maceration, where the infusion is. Because you're right, if it is a bit warmer, it might accelerate the infusion. So they will taste it a bit earlier. But general standard is that we'll keep it for the 7 days, sometimes 6, but generally it's a 7-day process.
And just keep tasting in between days.
Exactly, yeah.
So there's no blending at all?
No.
You don't blend it out to a consistent flavor?
No. We have our different batches. We have our different tanks, and each one has its batch, and we taste each batch as it matures, essentially, where it macerates. How do we keep the same flavor? We use a lot of, one was keeping the stability of seeking the same botanicals from the same supplier, so that there's a consistency since day one. We're using the exact same botanicals from the same supplier, so that flavor profile does not change. Now, it is 10 years later, so there might be changes like anything else. Cinnamon, cardamom, I mean, as the temperature changes in whatever country it might be made, there might be a slightly different flavor to it. Here is pretty much measuring out all the botanicals, and then a lot of tasting, because you got to taste it to make sure that each batch tastes the same. I mean, it's not much different than it would be for a cognac or for a whiskey that is being blended out each year. This is definitely a little bit more complicated, because you are adding in botanicals. You're not dealing with something that's aging in a barrel and you can play around with the barrels. This is more, like you said, about the botanicals, but it's a lot of measuring out and tasting, essentially.
Yeah, just keep tasting.
What a shitty job.
Whoever's job that is, I hope they have tonic around. Looking for a job? If you want to live in the countryside of London, sure. Give them a call. It's not the most exciting part of England. It is quite nice though. There's really nice pubs actually. What was I on? So I did Navy Strength. Right. We also have Old Tom Gin. Old Tom Gin. Again, we'll go into a bit of a history. Old Tom Gin is, well, we'll go into the name. Old Tom is Tomcat, which was based upon black cats were called Toms or Tomcats. So Old Tom gets its name. Well, hold on, maybe stop there. Old Tom was a gin that was made in the 19th century. At the height of what we call the gin craze, you might have all seen that famous drawing where you have gin street and you also have non-gin streets where you see everyone all hunky-dory, and on gin street everyone's drunk and inebriated and dying. Sorry to be so grim. The problem was is that during the gin craze in the UK, much like in the US during Prohibition, but even more so, people were making gin every which way possible in the UK. And as such, they were not distilling properly. They weren't cutting the heads. They weren't cutting the tails. They weren't just keeping the heart of their distillation to get the spirit. They were using all types of botanicals or reusing them or tainted botanicals. As such, just really not the gin that we, or quality that we have today. One of the ways to sell the gin, to make it drinkable, was to add sugar. So by adding sugar, you're covering up the bad taste of a bad gin. So Old Tom comes as a style, is a gin that has sugar added to it. Historically, it was created because it was bad, so we cover it with sugar, and everyone likes sugar. And Tom, and why there's a black cat on it, is during the period, if you wanted to get gin, you didn't necessarily need to go to a bar or a pub. Even children can even get gin, unfortunately. You gave a couple shillings into the wall, and it used to be a black cat, like I guess a carved out wood panel with a cat on it, and you put in your shillings, and you put your glass underneath the spout, and you got a bit of gin. And that goes back to the whole story of why there's a black cat and Old Tom, Tomcat. So the whole story behind why Old Tom. So our Old Tom is exactly the bathtub gin. We add cane sugar to it, so all natural cane sugar. Because of cane sugar, it is a little bit lower ABV than bathtub normal. It's at 42%. We can't taste Old Tom. Oh, maybe next time we can talk to the guys from Bart's.
Yeah, we have it in our portfolio, so we have it in Holland.
So it's exactly the same thing, just a little bit lower. So 1% ABV lower, and we add pure natural cane sugar into it. Going back to the philosophy of trying to keep everything all natural or as natural as possible since the beginning. And last we have in the bathtub range is Slow Gin. Slow Gin, again, is another British invention. Slow berries always mature after summer, right around probably September-ish. At that point, people would use slow berries to make juice or to drink it. Another way of doing it was to take your gin and take your slow berries, throw them into the gin, macerate it up until Christmas, and then you had a kind of a Christmas-style gin, which was slow gin. So slow gin is essentially the British version of their, well, originally would have been their Christmas gin. Our version of this is we not only take the slow berries, but we also put in slow berry juice. So we have slow berry juice plus slow berries into the bathtub gin to give it more amplified flavor. Going back to the principle of bathtub gin of double infusion of flavors, always trying to be as potent as possible. And yeah.
So the ABV is a little bit lower than the rest of the gins.
A little bit lower as well. Yeah, well, actually, very much lower, 33%. And also, we do add also a bit of sugar in there as well to counteract a bit of the flavor, bitterness of slow berries. And again, it's going back to cane sugar as well.
Cool.
That's it for bathtub.
Do you guys have any questions about the bathtub range? Otherwise, we can move on to the Rumbullion part.
Sounds good. If that's the case, I'll keep the questions open. Forgive me. Oops, I'm already giving it away. And just let me know, everyone can still see this? If it's loading up. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's get into what is Rumbullion. Again, we're starting off again. I invite everyone to pour a bit of the Rumbullion that they have into another glass, have a smell, have a bit of a sip, and then let's get started with the Rumbullion. So what is Rumbullion? Again, we're going to keep the same principle. These bottles are equally all hand wrapped in the same warehouse, same place.
But slightly different because they have the tiers.
They
On the
have the tiers. That's actually an interesting story. Should I get into the story before we talk about the rum?
Why not?
Sure. Rumbullion, when we started doing this, the story goes is that somebody put too much wax in and let it had tears. Originally, we were actually using red wax, but unfortunately, red wax and tears don't go very well together for anyone other than Maker's Mark. So we had to switch to black, and we also had to put a bit extra cord on the top. So if you look at the bottle, you'll see that it's not as smooth as the Bathtub Gin. There's about 3 times as much cord on the top of the bottle, so it can be really it can be really different than what is Maker's Mark. Not poo-pooing on Maker's Mark; they make great product. It's just with copyrights and lawyers, unfortunately, this is the things that we have to do. If you went on the label, it says the Queen, God bless her. This is actually a reference that the British Navy, when they didn't have gin, when they were coming back from the Caribbean, they would actually have a lot of rum. And there's actually a famous picture of the British Navy where they had sometimes they used to have a daily stipend, a daily drink of rum. Sometimes the serving vessel, the serving cask, had some wording on it. There's one particular one that had the Queen, God bless her. So we just thought that we could kind of give homage to Rumbullion and the history behind rum and the trade of rum. Also has some bad connotations to it, but the good side is we have rum today. What do we do?
Talk about rum.
Yeah, talking about rum. So, rum. What was Rumbullion? A little bit different than Bathtub. The idea behind Rumbullion is that the owners actually really like rum and coke. They really like rum and coke. The bad thing is that at the time, they didn't like the spice rums that were out there today. There's too much sugar in it. You didn't really get a flavor. You didn't really get a taste of real botanicals. She like 200. It was the former Queen Victoria. So they didn't really like the current spice rums, and there's plenty of different spice rums on the market. At the time, they didn't really like them. So I said, hey, why don't we just make our own spice rum? So spice rum is like anything. I mean, it's not much different than Bathtub Gin. It is rum. So we do take a rum and then we infuse it with botanicals. Why is it called spiced rum? That is just more about the fact that there were spices. At the time when spice rum was being made, spices were being traded across the world on boats. So adding any type of spice, even though it might be what we call a botanical or a fruit today, we're still kind of called spices. It isn't something that's spicy. I know you guys all know this, but why not say it as well? The idea was to create their own spice rum, and again, going back to the principle of using all natural botanicals and letting it macerate in a good column distilled molasses style column distilled rum from the Caribbean. Still mainly used to drink with Coke or by itself. I personally like drinking it on the rocks sometimes, or you can put it in any great cocktail. But it is, again, a spiced rum, so it's not the same thing as drinking a straight up rum, be it agricole or be it high ester rums from Jamaica or such. It does have a different flavor profile that is a little bit more inclined to say, I probably would say, within a cocktail or in a long drink or whichever way you guys prefer to cook it.
Yeah, some mixer.
I think it's working. There we go. So I know I'm repeating myself a bit, but just really trying to hammer in, this rum was made to be mixed. This rum was going back to the principles that the owners wanted something to put it with their Coke, put it with their 7-Up, because I know one of them drinks with 7-Up. Right or wrong, it is what it is. But the idea was that. So what do we get? What do we add in there? We add in real pods of Madagascar vanilla. Again, orange peel, same bitter orange peel that we use in Bathtub Gin, same cinnamon, same cloves, and same cardamom. I guess the real difference here is no juniper, but also adding a lot of vanilla. And I think when you smell it or even taste it, that vanilla really does pop out a lot. So do the cloves. And again, this is all going back to the fact that it is all natural. There's nothing added. The color of the rum is a natural color. There is a bit of color coming off from the cloves and cinnamon, but there's no caramel, nothing added to it as well.
Yeah, it's pretty herbal, and you taste like a little taste is like pretty sweet.
It is pretty sweet. So I just wanted to go to this page to get the tasting notes so everyone can kind of look at them. We do add a bit of sugar. Spice rum does have a bit of sugar. We again use a liquid cane sugar that we're adding into it. Very minimal, very minimal sugar, just to give a bit of roundness to it, a little bit more thickness to the rum. Nowhere near the quantities of like 30 grams per liter. I think we're probably around 10 grams, 5 grams per liter. So it's very minimal. It's just to give a bit of roundness to the rum, because the rum, when it comes into our warehouse, is pretty high ABV. So it's a bit more astringent. So we kind of round it out along with the botanicals. The sugar also helps attract into it. Where's the cane sugar from? Generally from the Caribbean, as far as I understand. But it is purchased in the UK, so it could change from year to year, but generally from the Caribbean. Do we want to taste a bit of Rumbullion? Let's see what
I
everyone
already
thinks.
started.
Yes, please.
Damn! You guys are all ahead of me.
And do you know where the rum you buy, where it's from? Or is it the same as the Bathtub? It's like a company's secret.
Well, the gin is made in the UK. The neutral spirit is made in the UK. So that's all UK based. The rum is Caribbean. It is column still molasses, so it's predominantly coming from Jamaica, Barbados. Is probably the majority of the countries, which is also the two largest producers of, two biggest rum producers besides Cuba. But Cuba sells most of its rum to, Pernod. We might also use a bit of Dominican from time to time, but that I'm not 100% sure. Majority of it comes from Jamaica and Barbados. So more of the English style, molasses style rums.
Yeah.
But again, these are not pot stills, so they're not the high esters that you might find a bit in things like Foursquare, let's say, or Hamden or Worthy Park. These are distilled to a much higher ABV to give a bit more refinedness to it and clarity to it. And then we bring it down a bit and then get to infuse it.
Yeah.
These are, in case anyone wants to know, these are all aged in ex-bourbon barrels. So barrels that previously were aging bourbon, much like 90% of the whiskey or anything aging in the world besides French spirits.
But that gives also a little bit of the sweetness.
And again, the sweetness, yeah.
It doubles up the vanilla and caramel.
Yeah, maybe a bit more of the color.
Alex had a question. What is the dosage on this?
What does that mean, the dosage?
Good question.
Very good question. What do you mean by dosage, Alex?
I think Alex is
Maybe
drinking.
pondering it.
Can you hear us, Alex? 'Cause, I think Alex is drinking. Can you hear us, Alex?
Maybe pondering it.
Alex? 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 Nope.
Let's keep it at 5. Or 3.
Oh, mine's private apparently.
Yes.
We'll let Alex come back, and I'm intrigued to see what he means by dosage. Sorry.
Yeah.
Ta, 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 ta. But yeah, I mean, it's going back to. I mean, it's not the crazy spice rums that have 10, 12 different types of spices in there and overlaying each other. I think what's kind of nice about this rum, or what I like about this spice rum, is that it's straightforward, 5 botanicals. It's straightforward. You can taste each botanical individually. You can taste the cinnamon, I mean, the vanilla for sure. You get a bit of that cloves, you get a bit of the cinnamon, you get a bit of the orange and the cardamom. You kind of taste each botanical has its play within drinking the rum, which is kind of nice that it's not overshadowed by something else. And the rum still has the sweetness and its own style. I think Alex is going to write us.
Yeah.
Oh, added sugar. Again, this is going below European standards. Exactly. Oh. I don't have the exact dosages, unfortunately. I might be able to pull them up, but these are things they keep from me, unfortunately. But Alex, I'm going to write it down, and I will let Roy know, and I'll get it back to you to know exactly. I know it's under EU. I know we're under EU regulation, and I believe we're closer to half of what the EU regulation is. I'm not going to poo-poo on other brands, but there are certain brands that have been putting a little bit too much sugar, where in today's market, the rums are in France, let's say, are being constituted as liqueurs and no longer rums because there's too much sugar in it. We are way below that dosage, but I will get back to Roy and Alex, and I'll let you know exactly the dosage, or as close as I can, in terms of percentage. But again,
because there's a new law coming for the sugar percentages, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because a couple of years ago, when I was working for another company, we were getting called out. All of our rums were being tested in France for the EU because they were finding out that there was some rums that were having per liter almost over 30 grams per liter, which means over 30% of it was sugar, which at that point is the EU regulation, I believe, is 13 or 15%. For over that, it's a liqueur. Correct, I might be wrong. These are just straight up liqueurs. It was no longer a rum. But there is a new EU law coming because there hasn't, unfortunately, been too much oversight or too much overview of what rum is and what constitutes as rum and what you can add to rum. There's nothing wrong with adding caramel. Adding drops of caramel to hundreds of liters only gives a nice color. Adding spoonfuls of caramel is a bit different, you know. There is residual sugar. Adding in tons of sugar to cover up a taste or make it sweeter or round is not longer a rum. I mean, what was it? Barbados just also was trying to pass its own AOC, its own protection, as of the end of 2019 to show what is a real Barbados rum that, you know, abides by every single regulation of only water from Barbados, no sugar added, only aged in ex-bourbon or XO casks and distilled in pot stills. They're trying to come with their own regulations, much like, let's say, bourbon or cognac to itself.
But that's already true. It's still coming.
That one is in place, but there's one major company that has not agreed with the other distilleries on the island. If you Google it, I'm sure you'll find out which distillery it is. It's owned by a French company. They're not so happy with the other distilleries. They're fighting it, but they're almost there. They're almost there. Essentially, what's happening in rum is that as rum is becoming more and more popular, and people are starting to look at it, and I think consumers, or not even consumers, all of us are becoming a little bit more conscientious about what we drink, regardless. I mean, it could be whiskey or rum or gin or mezcal or soto or whatever it might be. We also want to know what's in there and exactly what's in there. I want to make sure that it's as pure or as true to the spirit it's supposed to be as possible. So I think a lot of things are coming into question, and unfortunately, rum is one of those spheres where there hasn't been that much oversight into it, and it's coming more and more into place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall I
Yeah,
go in just a bit briefly into the other spirits?
I
And then we
think so.
still have-
Are there any questions about the Rumbullion?
Well, I'll still go into the Navy strength, which,
Yeah.
well, anyways, everyone, anybody want to ask a question? So I guess it doesn't need to be reset, but Rumbullion also has a Navy strength. So much like the Bathtub Gin, Rumbullion Navy strength is also at 57%. Here we actually have a higher alcohol percentage, but we also again reduce the sugar amount versus Rumbullion, the normal Rumbullion. Reason we do this is so that we actually have a bit more of the strength of the rum coming out versus the sugar and the botanicals. The third lineup to the Rumbullion range is, actually I have a little bit over here for myself, is we have a Rumbullion XO. And what that means is that is a Rumbullion, again, same botanicals, the same rum, just aged 50, it's been aged for a minimum of 15 years. This rum is equally a little bit higher at 46%. Lower sugar again. We really want the rum to shine through a lot more so than in the Navy strength and then also Rumbullion. But it's a 15-year-old rum that we infuse with the same botanicals, same maceration period, even less sugar than Rumbullion Navy strength, and a bit higher ABV at 46. So in between Rumbullion and the Navy strength.
And the rum is coming from the same island as
Yes,
the regular.
exactly, yeah. All Caribbean, all column, molasses, column stilled rums.
Only it's aged a little bit longer.
It takes, yeah, the average age of the bathtub and Navy strength is about 5 years.
Oh.
And that is, if anyone's interested, that is split up. There is continental aging and there's also tropical aging. So what that means is that the rum does age in the Caribbean and then it also ages in Europe. It's not 100% aged in the Caribbean or tropical climates. The reason I say that is because the influence on rum being aged in a tropical climate versus continental, angel share one, the angels are very greedy in the Caribbean. So the ABV shoots up and a lot less rum every year, but it also gives a lot more rounder flavor to it. And versus continental is a lot more stable. Where we can actually gauge every year what the percentage of angel share is. To give you an ad hoc example, Caribbean or tropical aging in, let's say, Jamaica or Barbados is probably about 7-8% per year, versus in continental Europe, including the UK, is about 1 to 2%. So
There's a difference.
big difference, yeah.
Yeah.
But both aging temperatures do add a certain flavor profile and uniqueness to the rum and how you get it as well. Should we get into the special?
The surprise bottle.
The surprise. We nobody has questions for Rumbullion, so
Yeah,
except for the sugar, which I do know. I have to get back to that.
Yeah.
Cool. So we thought it might be fun to throw you guys in a special little extra bottle. It's a little bit different. It's definitely down the realm of products that we generally do. It's kind of on its own. It's our cherry brandy. And like it says, it is a brandy that has cherries in it. So to give you a bit of a history behind it, it is a brandy. To be precise, it is actually a cognac. It is a VSOP cognac. The reasons why we can't call it cognac is because it's, well, not bottled in France and it doesn't abide by the regulations of the BNIC. So we predominantly use a VSOP cognac. We do add a bit of XO cognac in there for a bit more roundness to it. In that mixture of the cognacs or brandies, so grape brandy, we add in sour cherries. The sour cherries actually come from Eastern Europe. We use not only the juice of the sour cherries, but also the fruit. So it's the juice and the fruit that is macerated within the brandy. We do add a bit of cane sugar to round it out a bit, so it is a very sweet and thick type of liqueur. It is a liqueur.
Really thick, yeah.
And just for fun, we also add in just a bit of sloe berry juice to give a bit more tartness to it. It's very round, it's very sweet, it's very thick. This is definitely something that you want to maybe bake a cake with. I personally like a little bit with Coca-Cola on occasion because it tastes like a cherry Coke.
Okay, guilty pleasure.
With the curtains closed, right?
With the curtains closed and I have a blindfold on with myself. But it does have a lot of fun, cool properties. I've actually used it in the cake as well, but it is quite nice if you want to have a bit of a nice cherry flavor to a cocktail, or even coloring, because it is all natural coloring again. It's very dark red. Again, nothing's added into it other than the natural flavors or colors. So it can also give a nice little color to it and a nice little shine to a cocktail, even adding a couple CLs to it, or Coke and Brandy, cherry, and Coca-Cola. Guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
That is our special one. I guess more or less to see what everyone thinks about it and see if you guys like it or not, or just enjoy for once and see what it's like.
Yeah, we thought it was like a fun idea to give you guys a sample of the cherry brandy as well. Hope you like it.
It is not in a Dutch market for now. We can think about it, we can talk about it, but for now it's a specialty. So please enjoy.
Yeah. Does everyone know how cognac started? Does everyone know that cognac is actually why and how cognac came about? Could be a fun little story. It's actually Dutch traders used to come up the river into Bordeaux into Cognac, and they were trying to bring back wine to the Netherlands to trade. At one point, somebody thought the good idea of distilling the wine and seeing if they can water it down when they came back to the Netherlands or to another colony. Unfortunately, they decided that when they got back, it tasted better distilled or burnt. So the idea is that it's burnt wine is actually brandy. So the story is that even though the cognac region loves cognac and lives by it, the original story is because of trading with Netherlands, created what is now cognac. So thank you.
That's a great story.
And there still is Dutch, well, I guess heritage families that settled in the region to create cognac. They're still operating today, actually. Cherry Wine is the bomb. Do you have a slide for it? Yeah, actually. If you give me just a sec, I'll pull up something for you guys. Give me 1 second, okay? Where was it? Sorry, bear with me. This thing keeps coming down. Just give me 1 second. I can pull it up. Yeah, dear. Does everyone see that?
It's still on the Rumbullion slide, I think.
Is it?
Yes.
There you go.
You see it now? How about that?
Yes.
Cool. There's not much on it. That's pretty much the best ways to kind of explain the way I just did. Yeah. There you go. Do you want to get into the if they would like to get into a slight of a competition for some free bottles.
Yes, I'm gonna post something in the
Cool.
chat now, or I'm basically gonna try. We wanted to host like a little competition as well, as a surprise. Let me see if I can. Maybe you can explain it a little bit.
Yeah, so what we would like to do to make like a fun small competition, because the sample bottles are a little bit bigger than the regular one. I hope you guys saved some. If you can create, a cocktail, make a video explaining the cocktail with the recipe.
Yeah, explain the recipe, explain your cocktail, explain why you should win the bottles, and then we're gonna give you 1 week, so it's gonna be a quick one. Hopefully you can see this now. I put it in the chat.
Cool.
Yes, you got 1 week, Kako. That's
Easy.
quite short, especially for you, but I think you can manage, right? And please tag us using @Bart's Academy or @Adam Brands Lax, and hopefully Jon can do us the honor of announcing the winner next week somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing.
I'll share it with some of the people in the head office and see what they like, and we'll get back to you right away.
Yes.
That would be
Amazing.
great.
So I'm really
Hey guys, this is
curious
just to
what
have,
people will come up with. Yeah.
yeah, it's just to have a bit of fun and just to get everyone a couple bottles. I think free bottles are always fun, and especially when everyone is at home or not able to really go out. Let's have some free bottles is always good, and get to enjoy it. So I look forward to seeing what it is, and I guess thank you guys for organizing it. I hope a week is enough, just to have some fun,
hope so
play around
too.
with it. If you still
little
have
bit
some
of
cherry
pressure.
brandy, throw it in there as well. Why not?
I've seen Alex making a cocktail in a few minutes, so I think the rest of you guys can manage this.
Okay.
I was gonna say 1 week is too much time, man. I can make 5.
How about this?
All right,
Well, when I
so
get,
make 5 then. I dare you.
I was gonna say when when we actually get to start traveling again, I'll come to the bar and we can make 5 in one night.
Like make a speed competition.
Speed competition. Okay. Better have a lot of bottles of water ready.
All right, guys. Do you have any questions about the gin, the rum, or the competition?
Yeah.
Please let us know. If not at the moment, you can always reach me or one of the team.
So any cocktails one of you guys is have on the menu with some of the Ablesforth stuff already that you want to explain a little bit about, or maybe show to Jon what you made or something like that? Anyone?
You're still on mute.
Go, Alex. Yes.
I think everybody, it's clear for everybody.
Cool.
Something tropical, yeah.
I think everyone's thirsty or hungry. Any questions? Depache. Thank you. Tropical with pimento. Nice. Yeah. I like pimento. That's a good one.
When does this brilliant cherry brandy hit the market?
I'm sorry?
When does the cherry brandy hit the market?
That's a really good question.
I can't answer that one.
It is already on the market, but not on the Dutch market for now. But if you all guys sign in for 10 bottles, I can see what I will see what I can do.
All right, yeah, because that's a killer cherry brandy. Like,
Thank you.
I
Thank you.
guess there's not a lot of competition right now. There's mostly herring, but I really like the cherry brandy.
That's true. Herring's really good. It's true. Yeah.
Amazing.
I'm sure we can arrange a couple. We can arrange a couple cases to make it over there.
Yeah, we can. For
Yeah,
sure.
I think because if we do a next order, we can do a couple of cases, but we
We'll
can.
add some bottles for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, my personal feeling is I think it's a great product. I don't think it's a product that you're going to use a bottle every night. It's not like a gin where you're going to make, go through bottles in a night. I think it's a nice thing to use portions of it within a range of cocktails or whatever you want to use with it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Not to say I wouldn't want to sell more bottles, but I mean, there's only so much cherry brandy you can drink in one night.
Depends on how you mix it.
It's very true. You're right. It's very true. It would, you know what? It might be really good for the summer on a really hot day in the daiquiri with lots of ice.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. In a daiquiri, because it has some allspice into it as well, that would be brilliant.
And it has all the sugar, so you don't need to add sugar in it. So, yeah. That's giving me thoughts now to go make a daiquiri now. Okay. It's just not hot enough in Paris this week, unfortunately. Maybe next week.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah.
One question, John, why the bottle was wrapped at all?
Why?
Why it is wrapped in the paper? Yeah, is there a specific reason for it?
Why not? Marketing is marketing. You got to be different, right? So this kind of stands out. It's kind of funny because there's a good thing and a bad thing about the bottle being wrapped and what it is. When you're in a back bar and the bar is dimly lit, you can see the bottles. You can see that, okay, that's a Bathtub Gin bottle because of the wax, because of the cord on it, the shape. You can see it. What you can't see sometimes is what expression it is. It could be the Rumbullion, it could be the Bathtub. That's the downside to it a bit. We're working on that. We might change it. But it was really just to be a little bit different. And I think also to have like a nice crafty feel to it as well with the craft paper, what it is.
True.
Mystery in a bottle. Yeah, there you go.
All right. There are not any more questions. I think we can end this masterclass and tasting for tonight.
Cool.
Is everybody all right with that?
All right.
All right.
Hey, everybody, listen, if you have any questions, send me a DM on Instagram or you can ask Roy or the boys at Bart's. And ladies, if you have any questions, any concerns, please reach out. Don't be shy. We're always around answering questions and stuff. And I really do hope that I can start traveling soon and make it out and come visit everybody.
That would be great.
Maybe after the summer, hopefully soon. It'd be nice.
Let's hope for that, for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, John. And
Thank you, guys.
so much, all of you, for joining us.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for taking out your evening. Have a good one. Enjoy. And look forward to seeing the cocktails.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. 1 week.
1 week, guys.
Good week.
Good luck.
Cool. Cheers, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.